Okay, welcome to the January episode of the Board of Finance. Call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. I'm your acting chairman, Jeff Rusak. You can see two alternates.
I move to seat Lisa
For the vacancy.
for the vacancy.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Gosh, this is so lateral. Hi.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I.
Let's see, we can seat Jim Gilligan for Peter Saka. Make a motion to seat Jim Gilligan for Peter Saka.
I'll second
Second.
that too.
This, we have to do a voice vote, technically,
Why? No.
because Lisa is on camera.
You only have to do a roll call
All right.
if it's not unanimous.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. I'll entertain a friendly motion to move up the discussion on the school bond, potential school bonding project and presentation to the top of this agenda right now.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So thanks for allowing us to come talk to you about the potential school building project and referendum. So part of that process will include some Board of Finance approvals. So the project will be narrowed down from the 4 current options to 1 option on February 1st by the school building committee. They'll then refer and recommend the project to the Board of Selectmen. At which time the Board of Selectmen will refer the project for a PZC 8-24 approval and to the Board of Finance for an appropriation and borrowing authorization. So I've asked Lori Hall, who's our bond counsel from Hawkins Delfield.
Yeah, I'm here.
Attorney has been working with us to understand the process. The bonding process, and probably with the exception of Donna, most of us were not in our current roles the last time the town. So I've asked Lori if she could come out to talk to us about the Board of Finance's role in the bonding process.
Okay. Hi there, Lori Hall. I'm with Hawkins, Delafield and Wood, and we've been bond counsel to Wellington for over 2 decades. So we're very familiar with your process. As a non-charter town, you have different procedures than some other towns, but essentially, with every bond issue, underwriters and investors are looking for a bond counsel firm to issue their approving opinion to the effect that, number one, the bonds have been lawfully authorized and issued and constitute general bond, general obligations of the town. And the second one is a tax exempt status of the bonds, which that interest will be excluded for purposes of federal income tax purposes. So in order to give that opinion, we have to be very certain that all of the requirements of the general statutes and other laws and regulations have been satisfied with respect to the authorization and issuance of the bonds. And one of those requirements of the general statutes isn't so much that the Board of Finance approves it, but the Board of Finance recommends it. You would be asked to recommend one that you'll recommend the appropriation up to a certain amount. And then you would also, because every appropriation needs a funding source, you would then also recommend that the town issue its bonds and notes to finance that appropriation. And interrupt me at any point if I'm losing you or you have a question. It is essentially the same role the board plays with respect to the annual budget process or your CIP, because in that case the budget sort of routes your estimates of expenditures and sources of payment, and before it goes to town meeting, you're recommending that to the town. That's what's required. In fact, the general statute says that no appropriation can be made for any purpose that isn't recommended by the Board of Finance. So that is essentially your statutory role here. So it's no different than that which you put forward to the town at the annual budget meeting, that they are essentially, it's upon your recommendation that they're approving it. You're not approving it per se, so you don't feel you need to, you don't have that responsibility. You're just recommending that it go to the town for approval. It's 7:348 of the general statutes, if anybody wants to know, because these are all additional appropriations, and any additional appropriation has to go through the Board of Finance. Whether it's anytime it's over $20,000 on the recommendation of the board, it goes to the town meeting. And that's whether it's going to be paid from surplus, a contingency fund, or from borrowing. Anything in addition to what comes out of the budget. And I guess you're allowed some leeway up to $20,000, one per department, et cetera. But that's essentially where that requirement comes from. So if you have questions about your role in that regard, I can try to answer them. At that point, what most boards do for every bonding proposal, they review it, they recommend it, but they're also looking at the fiscal mill rate impact, because they need to be knowledgeable about that and be able to tell townsfolk what that will be. I mean, that's, but I'm sure that information is being provided by the SBC and your financial advisor. The bond may be broken out into several issues, because while we approve the whole amount, a lot of this will be paid from school construction grant proceeds, but you have to approve the whole appropriation in order to spend that. And also you'll be issuing notes along the way in anticipation of issuing the final bonds, so that when you do get progress payments from the state, those will be applied either to the project costs or to pay down your debt before you do a final long-term bond issue. Am I making?
We're just taking it all in.
Okay. I don't know that I have much more to say beyond that, other than to answer specific questions, because that really is your sole role here. If you're looking for me to tell you what the criteria that you need to evaluate, I can't tell you that. That's your role. I would like to be able to tell you that, but I can't.
Anybody else have any specific?
Hi, Lori, Christina Milas. I'm the chairperson of the CIP committee. So one of the things that we are wondering is just when these bond anticipation notes are going to hit and how much those would be, and meaning which years, and then when the actual bond payments start, because we think it's going to happen all in the next 5 years, is the way it sounds. But I don't understand it, so I need to.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's a question for your financial advisor. I can only advise you on the legal aspects of this. I do know that the expectation is that there will be several note issues, and a lot of that will depend on your spending as you go along with the project. They can outline what they expect it to be based on proposals and whatever, but that can change over time. Very often it's the case that there's a delay for one reason or another, or you just don't spend the money as quickly. So it's all based on expectations. And there could be fewer. You issue these notes in periodic amounts and renew them over time and keep increasing until you get to the final amount that you're going to do in a long-term 20 to 30-year bond issue. Those notes can be issued, you may issue 2 times or 3 times. It all depends on your spending needs at the time. But how often and what's being recommended, that's not for me. I'm sorry. I wish I could be more help here.
Okay.
Could you repeat the first, there are 2 approvals. I'm sorry, I'm Steph Summers. Thank you for helping us out with this. There are 2 steps for the Board of Finance officially The second one is when we recommend it to the town for referendum, or recommend it to the Board of Selectmen to take it to the town for referendum. What we could.
No,
you just-
actually, it's this, the Board of Finance doesn't recommend the referendum. They recommend that it go to the town. The Board of Selectmen will, at the same meeting, as I understand it, it's anticipated that there might be a joint meeting or it might be a single meeting. After you send it back, it goes back to the Board of Selectmen. They then set the date of the town meeting. They recommend that they then choose to, on their own initiative, to bring it to referendum. And then they set the date of the referendum. That'll all happen in one fell swoop at one meeting.
Right.
But
It's really,
that's,
I was really kind of saying that for background. We do
Yep.
that, we do that all the time for town meeting issues. But I was wondering, the first thing that you said that we do, I just wanted to know. if
all
you
part
would-
of one thing. You will have one motion, one thing that you will do after you have all the information you need to make this recommendation. It will be, you'll appropriate up to a certain amount for the project, and then you'll, as part of that same thing in the same motion, you will recommend that the town issue its bonds and temporary notes to finance that appropriation. It's all,
Thank
it's all one recommendation.
If I could ask a question, Jeff? So, hi, Lori, this is Erica again. So when, in the motion from the Board of Finance, that will include the dollar amount that will be in our motion, or in our, eventually our referendum question.
Correct. At that point, yes, because if you increase it later or something like that, you'd have to go back to Board of Finance to recommend the increase.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, as I said, you have to approve the whole amount, even though it's not expected that you will issue bonds in that full amount in the long term, because some of that's going to be defrayed by progress payments from the state on whatever construction grants you're awarded.
So the note borrowing is the full amount, and the bond will be what was not, the end bond will be what was not reimbursed by the state
Exactly.
or some other generous benefactor. Yes, to.
One can hope, right?
Anything else?
Erica, will you have your financial advisor at the meeting, the joint meeting or the meeting?
Probably the business manager and I will talk about that, hearing some of the things you say tonight, I say yes. And so I think it will be beneficial to answer some of the questions that the board has.
Yeah, they're being raised here, yeah.
And I think SBC has been working on some data that was derived from the superintendent, myself, and our business manager working with our financial advisor. So we'll be getting that information.
There basically is no other funding source for bond, for a project of this scope without issuing debt.
Okay, so we're clear on the process, more or less clear on the process, just not clear on the cost.
So, I'll bring that into light is that at this point, the SBC still is doing their public outreach to help them narrow down the project scope from 4 projects to 1, and that is anticipated to happen on February 1st. So from February 1st until working on mapping out a schedule of all of these meetings that would need to take place to get to a referendum. And in there would be discussions of the cost of that one specific project. And I anticipate that in there, the Board of Finance would have a regular meeting to be able to take part in that discussion.
Can we say, or can we go off of the figures that have already been put out there for the first 6 years based on 100,000 assessed value?
I would. So some of that
Okay.
information the SBC was working on last night. Do you have more questions for Lori? If you let her know.
No, I don't.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
So the finance subcommittee didn't complete their work, so they're still working on it. So the superintendent was still with them, and some figures. And so I know today I saw him send something to the SBC with some information. So I'll get them to formally send that to the Board of Finance. So you can have that to begin looking at. And then it will go from that one scenario to eventually a set of numbers for the very specific scenario which they will have approved. So, yeah.
So the sort of top of mind numbers or whatever that they've already put out there that are already on the website and everything.
Yes.
Because it's, you know, it's, I mean, just extrapolating from that, it's like, it's based on the first column, there's like 3 scenarios, 100,000 assessed value, 130, I think, and then 160, something like that. So if you go with the 100,000 assessed value, which is, well,
It's just
anyway,
like
if you
the
go with
Liliana.
that and you, because one of the things that the public needs to know is there's 6 years that are projected. You have to add those are cumulative. If you want to know what your real, tax increase will be in the 6th year, for instance.
Right, so each one is
So-
an anticipated annual increase.
There, yes, each year is just that distinct year of increase. So it starts slow and it amps up, and then it's like the 4th year out, it gets, maxes out in that scenario. That's based on a $60 million project, which, so anyway, when I calculated that on my own house or just on a, 100,000 assessed value, which again is, what is that, $140,000 value? I mean, appraisal. That is, and then figured it out from there. It's roughly after the 6 years of increases every year, it's about 1/3 of a tax increase is what I got. So if your taxes now are say 4,000, then 1/3 of that, so whatever, $13,000 or $1,333 would be what your rate, your increase would be about. I mean, I just think it's easy to do that and, to look at that if you want a rough idea. None of that, like Erica said, they're gonna be farther along with it, but I think people are kind of wondering, is there some, tell me if I'm wrong, Donna, I don't know. That's the way I thought it would work out. And if you go on those, like for instance, if your house is assessed value of 150,000, whatever number you get, just multiply it times 150%, and you'll get that figure that you would actually be, what your tax increase would be.
Yes, that's correct. I think your thinking's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to get my head around it because, I know the dollars are different and I know people don't understand, your assessed value is 70% of your house's, purchase or appraised value, so.
As long as your
it's-
assessed value stays constant, which it won't.
Right, well,
So what, we use some assumptions in there, right? Because we're
We're going to.
estimating. And so the assumptions were a 2.5% annual increase for each year and a flat grand list. And then in each year that either the new school or a renovated school would open, then that takes into account an estimated $500,000 savings on the operating side of the budget. So that's accounted for. So when you look at some of those numbers, you actually see a decrease. And those are the years where you see that 500,000 hit the operating budget. So the annual budget would go down significantly, anticipated in those years.
What's the bottom line here? Is the SBC gonna send 4 of these, all 4 options?
Referendum. So on February 1st, the SBC's plan is to take all of the data that they've gotten and the feedback they've gotten from the public and choose one option to move forward to the townspeople. And so while we're giving you all the information on 2 projects, and it's essentially 2 projects, you see 4 options because each one has an auditorium with it. And so after February 1st, you'll be asked to be looking at one project, one set of figures. And one potential impact. And it will be narrowed down for us, and then for townspeople to have a final say. If the process moves forward, from everyone's recommendation. So I will be, I see on the agenda tonight is to discuss a chair for your committee, for your board, because you are without a permanent chair. And so I'll work with that chairperson to schedule a potential joint meeting to outline, that would have the recommendations and approvals from the Board of Selectmen that Lori outlined for us.
Should we back up and do present to speak?
We're gonna get there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Are we good? I kind of boggled the start of this, but.
You did a good job.
All right, so we go back to the beginning, we said alternates, approval of minutes. So a little background, I went through and, you know, seeing what was on the town website, obviously, last December, we have to do. These are online, as they should be, you just have to approve them. Somehow, July and August were nowhere to be found. They were not submitted to our town clerk, and we didn't approve them, so those are there. And then, just this evening, in looking at one of these, I think it was July, when we had tried to approve a whole bunch of them from the past year. January 20th, it's online, it's posted, it's filed, but we did not actually approve it. So,
22?
yes,
January 22.
so a year ago,
Can I move to improve those?
yes, so moved. Is there a second? Second. Okay,
They've been posted.
all those signify by to approve the minutes of July, January 20th, 2022, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As opposed? Good, all right. So if we go in order, I assume everybody got these. So the next one would be July 21st of 22. This was, Sam, this was not the one, you had questions on one.
That was from August.
Does anybody have any?
July, the only thing, and I told Sam this,
First,
first,
make a motion first before discussion.
oh,
We make a motion, we,
I move we approve the minutes of July 21st, 2022.
I'll second that. Okay, discussion?
Just that when we refer to someone who's not in the top of the minutes as being present, like Troy or Donna, that, that we include their last name on first reference, just for future, for posterity. That's the only thing I think I saw in that.
Anything else? Christina?
No.
All right. Motion on the floor, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? August 25th, 2022.
That one had some notes in it.
Yeah. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 25th, 2022.
Second.
All right, discussion.
Yeah, there's one place that Sam had a question about it because Lisa's pet was being noisy.
She was yelling
I
at
have to
us.
say, I really lost it when I was reading these notes. So anyway, to clarify, we were talking about the second ambulance, and I was saying, I think we should have in the minutes officially that we asked Alex if there would be an impact on staffing with that decision, and he said no. So that was, I think that was.
So what I
my
wrote
part.
captured that.
You captured it.
So with that modification, what about Shakespeare Day?
Shakespeare's History Day.
Oh.
I
So that
told
was
her
real.
that too, yeah.
Anybody else?
Is there anything else? Oh, there was something that Mike was.
He
gonna
referenced a
clarify.
motion, but I never heard anyone actually make a motion.
Yeah, there's a motion to table, I don't think.
Let it go. Or ask Mike.
Yeah, because at the bottom, well, okay, so you wanted an actual,
It was actually, the part about the ambulance was from earlier minutes, wasn't it? Wasn't that was part of that when we were approving minutes, like the February minutes, something like that?
Maybe,
Anyway,
so just.
so that you were just looking for who made the motion to table in second.
Yeah, because no one made the actual motion for it and then it got voted to table anyway, so I don't know if it matters. Who made the motion and who seconded it?
I'd say let it go.
there's no motion.
So should I just delete that there was a motion? If it was tabled,
So,
would you ever go back to it after?
Would anyone be real upset if we just deleted it?
well, you can't,
Motion to
I
table?
mean, I can delete I will keep the conversation, but I can delete that there was a motion because there wasn't technically.
yeah, there was not a motion, and just take that, there's no, this is just,
It's not like there was an actual
You're not
vote
actually
on the
changing the
decide.
minutes.
no, this is just discussion, so just, yeah. Okay.
No, that's in there.
And then does anyone remember DPW, they were talking about the DPW was gathering something. It sounded like gasking thing, but I couldn't hear what I don't know what that would have been talking about.
Oh, Gatsby,
Oh, what's that?
so that was that must have been,
GASB.
Yes.
I think, is it two E's or just
No.
one?
No, GASB, Government Accounting Standards Board.
because you thought it said gasket.
Yeah.
No, but that makes sense.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that goes back to a previous public works director. So Gatsby's an accounting thing, obviously, but
Okay,
they were using that acronym to compile everything in town,
okay,
which, in long story short, apparently ended up just being scribbles on paper.
okay, wasn't a gasket,
So, but that's
Sometimes-
probably that's what I now I remember.
okay, I think that was it.
And anybody that was on the board for as long as I've been, just hear them say that over and over again at every meeting. Still working on Gatsby. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approve as amended? Aye. Those opposed? Now we're up to December. This should be fresh in our minds. Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 15th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Any grammatical errors? I was fine because everybody.
Just kind of short and sweet.
It wasn't a very long meeting. I think it was like 25 minutes or something, if that.
40 to be exact. All right, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. Anybody have anything to say? Anybody on video or phone? Present to speak?
Lori S. has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead. Lori, is that Lori Semper?
If I click ask to
Yeah,
unmute.
she should be able to unmute herself.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted me to speak now or when the agenda item comes up.
When you're on the agenda, so when,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, back to old business, budget status report, financial report. Donna has one. list or our
Yes.
normal?
Yes, I will budget, revenue and expenditure budget for you for 6 months of the fiscal year. I'll pass it around if anybody wants a hard copy. And follow along.
I already gave you that. It's on
Oh,
the
you
back of
did?
the agenda.
Sorry.
Okay, so revenue category is first. Property taxes, this is not what Janice has collected, but what has been transferred to the general fund. So there's 5 categories. And you'll see that the license fees and permits, the investment income, and the other revenues are all already over budget, which means we've collected more in those 3 categories than we budgeted to collect. I suspect when we get to the end of the year, property taxes will be over collected, over the budget, and intergovernmental will also come in over what we budgeted. The expenditures are tracking for 6 months. There's nothing out of the ordinary that I see in the expenses. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Good, okay. Update from school building committee rec, we don't have one anymore. See if anybody would like to volunteer for that later on in the meeting. ARPA update, I don't know if you have to or have anything.
I can give you a quick
Sure.
update. The ARPA commission has not met, not this week. I can't remember exactly. The 9th was the last meeting, and then the next meeting is on Monday, the 23rd. And the last meeting was a public hearing where we heard from several groups. We did not make any decisions, but I can tell you some numbers. Right, so the town received $1,735,454.22 in ARPA funds, and so far, $1,618,667 has been appropriated, which means there is $116,787.22 remaining. And we also have another $40,000 that has been returned from projects that were already appropriated because they came in under budget. So right now, well, on the 23rd, we will have about $157,000 to appropriate, but we have almost $300,000 in requests. So there's going to be a lot of discussion. There is also expected to be another $115,000 that will be returned from other projects that are currently ongoing. We're hoping to close the biggest one, which is from the BRIG program, and that's about $70,000 that will come back. So basically, we're just in a state of trying to figure out which of these proposed projects are most important, which ones we can appropriate now and can actually be spent now, and just balancing that all out. So should be a busy meeting on Monday.
Any questions?
The 115 isn't in that number yet of what we have
No.
left. Okay.
No, it's because it isn't technically available, but so we really can't appropriate it. So yes, that's it.
All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. Election of officers. I was hoping that everybody could be here. Obviously, Peter said he couldn't. I did talk to him. He said he, under no circumstances will he accept nomination as chairman. He might do vice. chair. So that's why I have all 3 positions on here, so. I will entertain a motion for chairman.
I'll make a motion to nominate Stephanie Summers as chairman.
I second.
Do you accept?
Oh, well, I accept the nomination, sure.
Anyone else? I'll nominate myself for all of this.
I'll second that.
All right. We call a vote. Mexican standoff.
Well, people might want to discuss, I don't know, right? I mean, I guess one question is how we would do this, like vote for one or the other.
Yeah.
Process, but people might want to discuss them.
Well, there's not gonna be any secret ballot, so it's either a yay. Okay, so.
Thoughts?
So right now, Jeff, you're the vice chairman,
Correct.
and is there anyone in the secretary spot
Peter.
here? So technically, do we need to vote on those?
I mean, if Peter stays the same, then he's, yeah,
Yeah, and this is just until November.
this is, so you have, after today is 9 months, yes.
That's my own question.
So,
All right, well, let's vote on chairman. All those in favor of Stephanie Summers signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Are we calling up you next?
yeah. That's why I wasn't sure what your process was.
you can abstain.
I abstain.
Okay. So that's three ayes, two nays, and one abstain. What?
No, that's the majority.
That's the majority, yeah.
Okay. Well, this has become your meeting. Congratulations.
Well, if you, Jeff, I'm really comfortable with you. Well, first of all, do you want to remain vice chair?
I can stay on.
Good, good. Well, I have no problem with you sharing finishing chairing this if you want to.
Get through this mess, okay?
Well, just because you have all the communications and stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's it. All right, so vice chair and secretary will stay. Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Stephanie.
Well, I would just say that I think the Board of Finance is a particularly collaborative board, and I appreciate the style that's been set, and it's pretty tough to follow McCoo, but I have, my direction is to make what I think will be a pretty complicated budget season as smooth as it can be, and get things to you as expeditiously as possible, and be open to hear anything that anyone wants to recommend. So, thanks.
All right, so if we move on, so that we still have technically a vacancy on the board. I didn't receive any letters from anyone. I did receive the member of the general public that's, said he would be interested in filling the vacancy. Beyond that, we do have two alternates. My experience on this board was when we had one, we would just have a friendly alternate the alternates so.
I'd like to nominate someone. Jim Marshall, he's been endorsed by the Democratic Town Committee to fill the position. And I think he's a really strong candidate. Jim, you can speak for yourself, but he's an architect. He specializes in school projects, renovations, and builds, and so he has a particular skill set that's good for us right now. But he's been here since 2020, moved in with his family. He's got kids at Center School, And since you've been here, you've been pretty public about being involved in all the, town meetings, a lot of town doings. And so I think he would be an excellent member on the board. I think he's got the kind of mind for figures that would, would help us, especially because of the role he plays in the workplace. And just want to pass these down to, let's see. That's him, Jen.
So I had this as just a discussion tonight. We don't necessarily have to act on it. So, whether we bring this to a vote tonight or not.
Is there a second?
I'll second. When is our next meeting?
So our next meeting would be the 2nd of February. That is an actual budget meeting.
Yeah, then it's budget.
No,
But
that's,
not,
no,
but
that
as
is,
far as
the-
our next regular
our
meeting.
next,
it's
our
a
next
month from
regular
today,
meeting
yeah,
would be the 16th.
16.
You can call a special meeting anytime you want, or have a special meeting in front of the next regular, yeah. You can call another meeting. We've done it
A
before.
special meeting to do it.
In
I
front
guess
of one of.
I'm not seeing, and I would love to hear what other people think about this, but I'm not seeing a reason to delay, both because first of all, we're in the thick of it, and we're starting to hear, we're gonna be starting to hear budget presentations and all that. And the SBC is up and running at a pretty fast clip. But I also think Mike shared with us at the January meeting that he'd put his hat in the ring for the opening on Board of Selectmen. And and then we were notified that he got it the following Monday. So it's been the better part of a month that we've known that this was coming. And I just feel like it's the time frame. If we didn't have a viable candidate, a really good candidate that would add so much to the board, I would feel maybe a little differently about it, but I really think it's a good time to act, and I don't see a reason to delay it.
Steph, I have a comment. Can I make one?
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought Stephanie was in charge. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to say that, Jeff, I think delaying it is a bad plan. I think if you have interest in somebody coming forward, this is the time to fill the role, learn the position, and right at the beginning of the season. I don't think there's any reason to just move forward with the alternates. Speaking as the alternate for the last 3 years, I was the main alternate the first year I was on when the gentleman stopped coming. I don't remember who he was or what that was all about, but that's a lot of burden placed on one alternate who has no intentions of being I support my town moving forward as an alternate. I mean, I'm here for you all. I want to be here, but I don't want to be a full seat. And if somebody who has experience to help our town grow responsibly, I say it's prudent that we bring them on, seeing as it's just something that gets, I don't know about you, Jeff, but I keep looking at the ballot. It doesn't seem to get filled up. So if there's interest, I think it's important that we take people who are interested, who are taxpayers in town. So I support Stephanie bringing the full seat forward.
Okay, anybody else have anything to say?
I have a question. Who does make that call? Is Stephanie officially the chairman as of right now? Who makes the call?
She is, but she designated me to finish this meeting. So
Okay. Just the procedural kind of question.
There's
Who makes this call?
there's a motion on the floor and a second.
So we're all gonna vote on it.
So we can call,
And you're seeing,
Okay.
so you will too.
I can already say how this is gonna go, so I'll call the vote.
Well,
I'm not being, I'm not, I'm
Hear
just,
from,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I
happy to-
would just love to.
I don't know,
you.
so I believe you, I did send a letter, it sounds like you guys will have a copy of it, just expressing my interest in, giving some background on my qualifications. As Steph mentioned, I've been here since, the summer of 2020, when I moved here with my family, from Killingly. I've endeavored since then, through various activities, with the board's warehouse, planning and zoning commission, paying active attention to the school building committee, because both my kids are in center school now. But I am an architect by trade. I work with project budgets on a regular basis and being very sensitive to, developing a project that, is budget sensitive, but also effective. I've worked with the municipalities on, facility condition assessments, and developing capital improvement plans, so I can bring that knowledge to any relevant project that come before this committee as a part of the Board of Finance process. I'm good with numbers generally. I understand value management. I understand, spreadsheets, proposal evaluation, more, perhaps most topically, I'm also, one of the core focuses of the firm I'm with is K through 12 construction, and K through 12 design. So given that, we're currently in the, we're considering the financial impact of probably one of the bigger endeavors this town has undertaken. I have an understanding of the state of the funding process, of the request for funding process through the state. I understand some bonding implications and financing impacts related to that, any school construction requests. So I have that background that I feel could be a benefit, at this time. I'd be able to offer a unique and valuable insight through the Board of Finance. Obviously, I lean on you guys, and I know this is a very experienced group of people, so I look forward to learning. I would look forward to learning from all of you, particularly as we jump into the swing of budget season. So, I thank you for the nomination, and I remain interested. So, any other questions? I'm here. Let me know.
Did they tell you how many meetings there are in budget
I
season?
saw that. Every Thursday of the pursuit. Yeah, no, I'm aware, and I wouldn't, and I've expressed it before, I don't make a commitment lightly, if I'm not able to entertain it, and give it my full due diligence. So.
Did you have a school bond kind of meeting tonight?
No, yeah, no, this is out in Rhode Island, actually, so the Rhode Island equivalent to School Building Authority, with the Rhode Island Department of Education, working with charter school out in West Greenwich. So I had a school building committee meeting with the School Building Authority. So, multiple states.
You'll just have to remember what state you're in.
I hit 3 states on any given day, so, more often than I'd like, but happy to be here. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
anyone else?
Well, I kind of think it's terrific that he's an architect, since we have crumbling foundations and old buildings in town. So I think it's terrific that we have somebody who understands materials, the expense of materials, and the best way to erect a building. So I think that's very, very positive.
Okay, let's vote. All those in favor? Of,
I,
Aye.
aye. I'm only gonna vote no because I'm just leery of new people by,
Understand? Okay.
That's just the way I am.
And I'll abstain because I think it's a little bit.
Nothing
rushed.
personal.
So do I have to
Okay.
go through and do a roll call again? I have to roll call now.
Oh.
You still want to say no? Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, Christina?
Yeah.
Jim?
Abstain.
Joe?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
And Jeff?
Thank you very much.
All right, welcome to the board, and you do have to get sworn in as soon as possible.
Learn the secret handshake.
And the next meeting will be on the 2nd. Okay.
Oh, I want one thing. Do we have the onboarding process? I know we had talked about like
The
when new
secret handshake.
board members come, that we have like some materials to give them, but I don't know who does that.
Well,
Donna
so
does
so
that?
now that we're back into, some kind of normalcy, we have this, we do have a standing secretary that is very organized, so she can provide past minutes, anything that you need.
And we have like
There's a handbook.
the handbook, yeah, that's what I'm thinking
I used to affectionately call it the handbook for the recently deceased, if you're a Beatles fan. And there are state statutes on the board in general. We are not a charter town, so we are statute based.
of. And
Which
we
also means it's a little bit loose.
I was looking at this too the other day, the description of funds, I don't know if you have this, Kim, but it lists out all the
Special
different
funds.
funds and special
Yeah.
funds and how they can be used and where they're kept and all that stuff. It's like, it's really good cheat sheet.
I'll take over to you 2 seconds.
Yeah, so,
Myel will work to get him set up with an email so you can begin communicating with him through the town-based email, which you all should be using.
I can't use mine.
Okay, we'll work on making that
Thank you.
happen. You're welcome.
I can't use mine either, Lisa, so.
Oh, that's good to know, Jeff.
All right, moving on to CIP purchase of public works vehicle. That's Erica.
Oh, that's me. Okay, so I've come to you before to kind of give you a heads up on where we were with a purchase from the CIP plan from the 22 to 26 CIP plan. As you know, the CIP plan is approved at town meeting. So it's part of recommendations that come from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance and then approved at town meeting. In that CIP plan was a public works director vehicle, specifically Ford F-350. And as I've mentioned to you before, we were nervous that that order would be canceled, but we held out the slimmest of hope. In December, all our hopes were dashed when Ford officially canceled our order and said, good luck next time. Oh, and you can't order any 2023s. You have to wait for a 2024 model year to purchase, to get in on those orders. And the prices are outrageous, well over our budget. So at that point, the public works director and I began looking at other options. Were there other trucks already out there in the market that we could purchase? We found several that were not diesel, they were all gas models. And they were significantly more than our budgeted amount of $49,942.19. And that included the truck with the plow. So we were looking at, as base a model of a vehicle you or I would go out and purchase with as few bells and whistles because they're just not needed. And we were looking in the upper $50,000 to $60,000 range before a plow was put on it. So Troy started thinking outside of the box and what we could do. And just so you know, his current vehicle is a 2011 in need of probably in the ballpark of $7,000 plus of work. So we kind of held off on that. And so what he thought about was either a Ford Explorer. So we started looking at Ford Explorers. Long story short, after the fire department came in with their new service vehicle, that they were lucky enough to find, we actually called Sullivan's Northwest Hills to see if they had any additional Chevy Tahoes that we could purchase. And they did. They have some on order that were not spoken for yet, and one specifically that the town could purchase. And so the Board of Selectmen, we worked with Donna. This was a lease purchase. I think that's really important for us to mention. So we already secured the lease in anticipation of the delivery of the Ford F-350. And so now we found ourselves in a position where we have borrowed money. We've begun paying back that lease, and we still don't have a vehicle and still need a vehicle. So what we have looked at is a Chevy Tahoe for $39,571.60. And then the selectmen also discussed using the additional dollars towards the full lease payment to put the necessary accessories. That would be lights and a radio. It's simple lights and a simple radio that in simpler times would cost somewhere in the $2,500 range. You had before you a quote for $86, $23, $32, to which both our Public Works Director and I gasped at, because we put the same items in a Ford F-350 a year ago at a fraction of this cost. So a new Selectman McCool, I don't know if he's still on this call, when I sent this to the two selectmen to see their response to our sticker shock, Mike actually reached out to some vendors that he knew, and actually they told us we were getting a really good deal. So Troy had come to me and said, I can't spend $11,000 on this vehicle, I just can't. I'll be lucky if I spend $2,500, and it's $8,600. So what we're asking you to do is to support recommending that the selectmen call a town meeting to change the approved CIP plan from a Ford F-350 to a Chevy Tahoe SSV 4x4, as well as the accessories needed. And upon those approvals, we would go to the bank, back to the bank for them to approve substituting, if done it, Stefan, if I misspeak, this particular purchase for the F-350 that we secured the financing with. So we had to give them the specs of the vehicle we were purchasing, and that was the F-350, but that's never going to come in. We're never going to get that vehicle. This still leaves us slightly under budget, which is a plus, if you will. But definitely a different plan than originally anticipated. So,
What are the two figures we're comparing with again? Can
so
you-
49, and it's outlined in the memo, 49,942.19 was the lease we had secured to purchase the truck with a plow. So this would be just a Chevy Tahoe. And so the cost would be the cost of the vehicle at $39,571.60, and then the $86,23.32. So what we, again, we'd be asking is that you recommend the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting, and that town meeting would, the question would be derived from your motion, which would be to change the approved CIP plan from a Chevy F-350 to a Chevy Tahoe.
Or the Chevy.
Or the Chevy.
And we don't have to include the amount or the funding source in the motion?
No, there's no appropriation for money. You already have the money. You just have it for trucks.
So there,
But we felt strongly that this went through a process where town meeting approved the plan,
yeah,
and we're essentially making a substantial change in that plan. Still a vehicle for the intended purpose, but a very different vehicle.
What is the intended purpose of this?
It's for the Public Works Director. So he currently has a truck, so by contract, he has a vehicle that he drives to and from home. So he is on call for emergency situations, and part of his job provides him a vehicle from the town. He's on the road daily, whether it's back and forth from the garage to different locations around town, driving our roads. To different obligations. I don't.
I don't know what the
No.
939 is, but
It's not.
Alright.
But so, and he has a truck that he uses now, and so this is in the replacement plan, it went through the cycle of CIP. And these very unusual times, especially in the market, we thought it would be delayed, we never saw this coming because we got the F-450. But
Now, with his current vehicle, is that equipped with a plow now?
it would not have a plow.
His current vehicle?
Oh, it does,
It does.
yes.
And does that plow get utilized?
He does, he helps out, do some intersections and things, but he doesn't plow, he doesn't have a route. And he felt, strongly that with, the equipment that we have, and we do have a spare, truck if need be, but he doesn't plow on a regular basis, that's, union, work. So he helps out in major storms, and assist in different things. So that was, my first question was, do we need a plow with a truck with a plow? And, this will give us an opportunity to see how necessary that is when we go to replace this vehicle in the next cycle, if we go back to a truck. We weren't thinking this direction initially, but trying to be cognizant of the fact that, the vehicle has some significant deficiencies and needs to be repaired. We had a plan in place, and now anything we purchase is either delayed a couple of years or at a significant increase.
The next cycle will be about 10 years for this current vehicle?
Yes,
The more than one we'd be purchasing?
yes.
If we find there's a deficiency, do we have anything in place to fill the gap between now and 10 years from now?
Yeah, so we have a maintenance budget. So, his truck, it's always on the road. And so to some, it might seem like it has lower mileage, but they're hard miles. And it's, out in all weather. And so the body is rusting. We do plan to try to sell that vehicle to offset some of the costs as well. But so there's money in the budget to do repairs on vehicles in that 10-year span.
Would this vehicle be able to be upfitted with a plow should the town need it?
I don't believe you can put a plow over these
I
now.
think it's a 1,500 essentially, right?
you could, I mean, I would like you, but it wasn't me.
You could, but it's not made for roads.
Right, it's not made for roads. And he doesn't typically plow the roads, when he's out in storms. So, but does have, an older vehicle that he could get in if he needed to.
All right, two things. I remember a few years ago, Troy had actually, I think he actually wanted to go this route, and we all kind
Yeah,
of were flabbergasted. He's got to drive a pickup, which,
he did suggest this.
And the other thing is, all right, so what do you got? You got two different, you got a,
Right, so
this says 40.
that is the vehicle.
On the back of the Sullivan thing, it says $40,007.20 for this truck. For the top.
Is that yours?
That's yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
I may
So
have,
that's-
I may have copied the wrong one. So it is 39,571.60. So it is similar to the.
But plus the 8, plus the 89. Okay.
Right, so part of, Donna, do you want to talk about the lease and the difference in funding and why we might be asking for the lights package?
Oh,
Yeah.
use it all in the state. Are we keeping the old, are we gonna keep his truck as the spare?
No, he'd like to, he thinks we should sell it and put and recoup some funding from it.
So where would that funding go?
It typically goes to the general fund. There's no plan for it, everything goes to the general fund. Unless they you authorize a transfer.
Do we have a value on that potentially?
You said it.
How soon do you want, I'm gonna throw something really radical out here. It doesn't really matter, I mean, it doesn't matter no matter what, but, so for my own personal thing, I started thinking about this. And I know there's gotta be there's a market out there for rebuilt, remanufactured trucks. I found a company in Austin, Texas. And I just for the hell of it, I decided to see what my 2006 Chevy Silverado would be. Brand new off the lot, it's a $55,000 truck with a real motor in it. They will pay to ship it back and forth totally rebuild it from the ground up in 4 to 6 weeks for 39 grand. So I'm just, just saying, if, as we go forward, it might be something to think about. I'm just throwing that out there for.
What we're asking for is, there was a plan in place, which.
So
we
I know, I'm
executed,
just, this
right?
is something you
And
guys
so-
can think about, like.
Yeah, and, what Troy wasn't comfortable with, and I appreciate, and I hope that you all do too, was coming to the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance and suggesting that we purchase a $60,000 truck and a $12,000 plow. That were, well and above in equipment, what we would need. That, if we go out to buy a new truck now, even the stripped down model would be much more than we had originally paid for. So, we're trying to execute the plan, the CIP plan that was in place, and make a change with these very unusual times. Again, had we known then what we know now, he would have ordered his truck green because they paint green twice a year, and that's how we got the 450. But he went from a green truck to a green truck and a silver truck to a silver truck, right? Not making any changes. And in normal times, it wouldn't have mattered. So, but I'm not sure what that is, but we looked at just replacing the vehicle. So
What are the accessories that go?
it's a radio and light, and then the
Oh, okay.
antenna that go with it. Yeah, that's it.
And what about like stuff in the back? Like, I know some of these trucks, you can get,
Cabinets. and like
cabinets,
that.
yeah, and like
He
things
didn't-
that slide out.
Yeah, he didn't feel that he needed any of that because, he'll put some cones and some signs and a shovel. And could do that with this vehicle still as well, and wouldn't need any additional, add-ons to the vehicle.
Okay.
And certainly not using it in the same fashion that the fire department would, where they would need that cabinetry.
Mhm. Well, I know the public works director in Tallinn had a very outfitted truck.
fire department built that for him.
Oh, yeah. That was really cool, but
Yeah,
definitely not cheap.
no, not at all.
All right, what do we wanna do? Do we have real numbers for the motion?
You don't,
We don't need numbers because we're talking about a change in the CIP plan. I'll move that we, to recommend that, that the Board of Selectmen comment on me.
kind of what's written on the bottom from recommendation.
Really?
Yeah, the bottom of the first page, recommend.
Oh. I move to consider recommendation that the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting to make a change in the approved CIP from a Ford F-350 to a Chevy Tahoe SSV 4x4, as well as accessories needed to outfit the vehicle.
Second,
Any more discussion?
Kind of had the discussion already, didn't we?
We did.
Maybe, but Joe, yes.
Go ahead.
It just seems to me like we're taking a usable truck for the town and now just purchasing transportation. Is there something that where we need a Tahoe? I mean, there's less expensive four-wheel drive vehicles in the marketplace. Could we possibly save some money? I mean, I'm just gonna throw a random car out there, a Ford Escape. It's a lot less than a Chevy Tahoe.
So I can tell you, we did
What-
look at something smaller
what
than that, but big
what
enough
are
that
the-
he could still put accessories in the back if he needed to. Road signs, cones, the things that a public works director would need, and that would give him the space. And the vehicle would still go out in all weather. So I think the size, in my opinion, would be necessary, and I certainly don't know the availability of any of those
No, sure,
trucks, and they would come in at, they don't make them like fleet vehicles, so they would come pretty accessorized. He certainly doesn't need heated seats and heated steering wheels and fancy radios, and those are things that when we were originally looking, all of these vehicles had, and we kind of took a pause and said, are these kind of the only options? Because we're buying a car that you or I would buy. where what we had ordered was a fleet vehicle that's pretty stripped down.
Right, sure.
So I think the size would give him as close to the equivalency of the pickup of a truck that he would need if there were work, things he needed to put in the vehicle to be able to do his job and assist his crew.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm with you. We're in the bizarre over here. All right, let's vote. Wanna do the-
I don't know if anyone seconded that motion, if they did, I missed it.
Oh, I did.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Lisa?
Can I take a pass for a minute?
Sure. Christina?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, move it to a vote to the town meeting.
Joe?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. So we have,
I didn't feel a lot of enthusiasm.
Wellington Hill Fire Department volunteer bonus request. You having fun there, Tom? Listening to all this? I'll let you, so Tom Snyder has, he should have his letter and,
So, yeah, let me start by saying that my request to be on the agenda should have been from both fire departments, with both the chief Warren and myself. But it's for the same thing, that your names on the list are from both fire departments. Recruitment and retention is a big problem for both of us with volunteers. And get people to volunteer in fire service. And so the town, through our things that we're allowed to give bonuses to certain town employees and the other fire departments paid staff. Volunteers did not qualify under that, under the ARPA funding. But nonetheless, the volunteers did respond during these times from 2020 on for COVID calls and things like that, for all calls for that matter. And I was kind of hit by a lot of people saying, well, what about us? What about the volunteers, the people who were doing it for nothing? And that's, my department is strictly volunteers. So that's why I put in the request to kind of get everybody to, it's a morale thing, basically, for me, and to retain members and not to discourage members to volunteer, and kind of put everybody on the same playing field to say, good job, thank you for putting your health at risk, your family's health at risk during the times that we discussed, and for what the other bonuses were applied for. So that's what the intent of my request.
oh, okay, so
So the list is volunteers from both departments?
Yes.
Thanks.
And how did you come to $1,000 for each person?
I believe that's the bonus that was across the board.
Well, wasn't it part-time people who had less than full-time people?
It was new employees, somebody that came in like in the middle or towards the end of COVID had a shorter or a lower amount.
Mhm.
Regular employees were 1,000, supervisors were 1,500.
So
Town staff.
So these people could have only responded to one call though, or maybe, I don't know,
Well, the way
but it's the way it's worded, it says
The way
any
I came
call.
up with this was active people from that point on, an active membership, an active responder,
Mhm.
not somebody who's, doesn't go to a lot of calls, they wouldn't be an active category. So I mean, I could go back and, decipher exactly who made what calls, but for the most part, the people on the list, it's kind of a short list, to be honest with you. They did respond to most that were extremely active from that point, of view, before that as well. But from this point on to 2029, so, again, like Chief Moore said, that, the reduction in the bonus for their end was somebody who may have started working, 2021. so they got less, and that's bullshit through the whole pandemic and through the year of it. But these people on the list have been active prior to and extremely active throughout. So,
Just to add on our requirements for being put on there, so we only have 40,
yeah,
was they had to be EMS certified and run ambulance calls. We didn't put our regular, a volunteer fireman on. We did just our EMS staff.
and that's the same here, the names on there, just some certain level of certification for EMS, EMR, EMT.
And where would the funding come from?
I don't.
Well, I don't know if Don has thought about it or knew about it.
Comments, first I'm hearing of the request for the.
Can I share? So the town staff, certainly, we put forth process and a project that eventually went to town meeting, and that was prorated for their time of service. But the base was $1,000 for regular staff and $2,000 for department heads. And then the town had staff that are elected officials that were not eligible through ARPA, similar to volunteers. So the Board of Selectmen actually took a vote that 3 of our elected officials, including myself, the registrars, the 2 registrars and the treasurer, that if we had surplus funds from the end of the year, that we would provide this similar bonus to the rest of the employees to them. So we took it from so it has not been given to them. It's dependent on a surplus at the end of the year.
Were your amounts were 1,000 pretty much, or were some
So
of them less than that?
So some were more, department heads were more than regular staff. So they were anywhere between 2,000 and I think $250 may have been my lowest. And again, because it was prorated for their amount of time during the period we outlined. But we also had ineligible individuals through the ARPA rules, and so the selectmen are doing it through our budget, but assuming that there is surplus at the end of the year.
So now or later? Talk to me like a.
Later.
Okay.
So
So
the 3 elected, the registrars.
No,
and
I
the-
know, but
So the rest of the staff received money from ARPA, and that payment already went out as it did through the paid
Yeah, but this is
staff of
not.
the fire department. So there's, you have to decide if you want to do it and where the money would come from. Just for comparison's sake, I'm just sharing with you how we handle non-ARPA funds on the Board of Selectmen side. And so they have not actually been given a bonus, those 3 individuals.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, it is, if there's a surplus at the end of the year, then they would receive it then.
And the other group in town is the teachers,
Right, right,
and in Mansfield, the teachers did receive bonuses.
that's
right?
correct.
And at Region 19,
I don't know whether there's included Region 19. So our, there was nothing put forward for the teachers here, but I can't speak to why.
and Ashford,
I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure how they spent all of their funds.
And again, going back, my main motivation for submitting this and requesting this is the morale and improvement and retention of the stuff. I mean, it's kind of, like I said, people don't expect it at all. Some of them don't even know I'm doing this. But again, I just feel it's fair across the board, and it's a value that's beyond, the 17,000. Well, it's gonna raise their morale, it's gonna say, okay, well, everybody else did a good job, they all got bonuses, we did a good job, we got bonuses. Let's move forward. As opposed to the opposite, where, we get nothing, we're gonna stay home.
they're still eligible for the tax rebate, right? The volunteers? They still get the tax rebate,
Yes, there's a
Yeah.
tax rebate.
but that's based on calls too, or how many?
Yes, it is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, based on active staff.
Is this the same list, Tom, for that?
For the tax.
Are these the same people who would qualify for the rebate?
Probably
I mean, for
most-
the
Probably
tax?
most of them, but a lot of these names don't have a full tax bill or liability account.
Okay,
You know, there's only a few on there that are full, use the full tax abatement,
gotcha.
because they have houses and multiple cars, and what have you. So a lot of the names on the list just have car taxes, if that,
Mm-hmm,
and they don't benefit from tax abatement.
okay.
But they get what they're eligible for.
Yes, they do, yeah, they, you
Yeah.
know, if they have a $300 tax bill, that it's covered by the tax abatement.
All right, so it's a total of what? 17,000? Or, yeah.
I know that when we were discussing the bonuses for town employees and the bonuses for the paid fire staff employees, we did discuss, we discussed that this was a group that was being overlooked and doing much of the same work. So, I mean, we understand the logical request, certainly. I think it sort of opens it up, though, to money spent, and rather than it being handled through ARPA or something that's recovery money, it would be money spent through the budget at the onset of the budgeting year. So I don't know if, Donna, if you've looked in, if you've been aware of this, or if you have any thoughts about where this kind of money might dwell in the budget, or whether it's what happens at the end of the year, if there's money that's been underspent or something like that.
I think there will likely be an operating surplus at the end of the fiscal year that will cover $17,000 for bonuses. So I think if you want to spend $17,000 on bonuses, I think you have it in the anticipated fund balance at the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
All right, so what do we want to do? We can act on it, we can table it, we can take it as an advisement.
What are the thoughts?
You can sneak this into next year's budget too.
That's an option. If I put it into my budget, absolutely, but it's a big increase in my budget. For the 1 year, I understand that.
So this wouldn't go to town meeting because it's not over 20,000, so that's one thing. It also, we could just wait till the end of the year, just like the selectmen are, just so we know for sure, 'cause what if something catastrophic happens? Now we know those things do happen, so, because we wouldn't want to spend it now and then find out we don't have it, if something does go over. I don't know.
If I could, so from the selectman standpoint, we struggled with feeling like we left some out, the same way they do with volunteers, and all of it was not included. I won't say left out, but not included, simply because the very clear language of ARPA excluded them. They excluded them very specifically. And so that's why they weren't included. But, it was a struggle to say if we have money, knowing that there's a possibility we could not something could happen and we could have no surplus and then some would not get something. But we thought that was the responsible thing to do, that our intent was to try to recognize, but we may not be able to.
Do we have any line item that we can definitively say we can pull these funds from safely?
No. There's no single line item that would have a favorable variance of 17,000. It would be a collection of money that comes back from different departments, likely.
Can we as a board make a motion to approve recognition of the bonus payments as a motion ending the fiscal year surplus? That we approve these funds, it's an encouragement to the troops. We can't distribute the funds until we're sure of whether we have this. You're saying it looks likely we're gonna have a budget surplus.
Barring any unforeseen emergency that we need all of our money and then some.
I mean, is that something that we could do as a board, is
think
in spirit, approve this ending whether we actually have the funds?
I wouldn't want to see us get their hopes up. I mean, the cost of everything gone up. I can only imagine what the presentations are going to look like to us. I mean, every department's going to ask for more than they did the previous year. We scraped last year raising taxes to come to a budget. So, I mean, I don't see there being this, wonderful surplus. We'd like to say, hey, we're going to find it for you guys. I don't see it. Obviously, I don't have all the information in front of me. I've got a small, spreadsheet with a couple of expenditures and revenues. I mean, I just wouldn't want to say, yes, let's rah, raise the troops. And then in 4 months, we're cutting everything from every direction, trying to balance. I just think that would do the opposite of build morale, in my opinion.
I think the thing that Donna's pointing out is that we're way over in our revenue side as far as what the projections are. So there would have to be some sort of massive overspending versus we just didn't make the budget. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's my thinking. That's why I'm anticipating that there's going to be an operating surplus. Now, you planned to dip in 490,000. I'm thinking that maybe you may not need to dip in all that much because your revenues are doing so good. But there's still a lot we don't know.
Right.
Christina made a very good point. There's a lot, we don't know what's coming. Could be snowstorms galore, whatever. Trucks breaking down, we don't know. Trucks not coming.
Yeah, we can take this on as a friendly advisement and see what happens at the end of the budget year. We can't make a motion to say this is gonna come from this, and this right now. So, but, I agreeable, everyone?
I think that's good, or if you guys want to recommend it in your budgets, that's a possibility too, like you suggested, Jeff. Maybe end of the year makes the most sense.
Okay.
I'd love to say yes now. I mean,
Well, there's nothing to say, really, there's nothing concrete to say yes to, right? So. Anyway. Does that work for you guys?
I'm
We know you're here, yeah.
We just, as long as we can, you guys know we're gonna bring it back up towards the end of the year.
Well, I know,
I think you're in good faith here.
all right, thank you. Thanks for coming. Letter from treasurer regarding paid time. Lori, are you still with us?
I am. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I don't have my video on because I barely have a signal and I figured you'd rather hear me than see me.
You in the outback?
Yes, I'm in the outback at the National Seashore. Everyone has a copy of the letter? And so basically my issue is that and I know this was all in good faith, and I know that we're always short of funds, and I know that Donna does a great job, and hi Donna, it's nice to see you. It's just that after I worked in the position, after it changed to part-time, I kept track of my hours, and I've worked between 7 and 8 hours every week, and I only get paid for 5. And that seems to me to go against labor laws. I can't be salaried because I make less than $475 a week. And I know it's an elected position, but it doesn't seem to me it's that much of an amount to make it fair that I shouldn't be working 40% more for free. I don't think anybody does that in any job, and I think that's why there are labor laws. And I understand that it's elected, but it's work that I only do. I reconcile the bank accounts. I'm in charge of all the bank accounts. And I just think that it takes that much time. And again, when it was estimated, we didn't know because the position changed from 25, 30 hours a week to 5 hours a week, but it's really more like 7 or 8. And I would like to be fairly compensated, as I believe the registrars should also be. And I know we've had conversations in the Board of Finance in the past. The registrars on election week still get paid a couple hours a week. And again, that's not fair. Ashford pays their registrars for the hours that they work. And I think this is something that the Board of Finance has to address. And obviously we need to change this in the budget. And so I'm asking you to address this. I don't know if it's fair to ask for compensation for hours I've already worked. I don't know if it's for the current budget year that I should be worried about this. But I will tell you the election is in the fall, and I think you're going to be very hard pressed to find someone who's willing to work 5 hours a week. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 hours a week for 5 hours of pay and no benefits. And I like the job. I like the work. It's sometimes stressful. That's okay. But it's only fair that I get paid for the time that I work. And I'm retired. The money I make helps pay for my trips to the Gulf Shores like I am now. But I just think that we should be fairly compensating people for the hours that they actually work. So I'd like you to address that. And I'm not sure how we fix it, but I think you're going to have a hard time finding a treasurer with the situation the way it is now. I don't know if anybody has any questions. My suggestion is to make it hourly, and I do a time card, or whoever's in the position does a time card. Because in the past, we've had treasurers who didn't actually work all of the hours, and other people in the finance office had to pick up those hours, and they still got their salary, whatever their amount was. And this way, the treasurer only gets paid for the time that they're actually working. You know, if I have a week where I'm only working, like this week, I couldn't get on the computer today. I don't have enough of a signal, even with my hotspot. I couldn't get on to the software. I couldn't get into email. And I did some things from my phone, which was really frustrating, but that's on me because I'm traveling. And so I won't get as many hours this week because I just can't get into the computer. And I just think makes more sense to pay an hourly, rate for the hours that are worked.
Lori, can you give a little bit of background on when this job was sort of reorganized that way? Because, I mean, I remember thinking that when this was first set up, that this was such a tiny part of hours for the elected treasurer. But just kind of, if you can kind of give people a refresher on what occurred from the way we had it set up before.
Okay, so for a long time, and I'm sure Donna can verify this, because Donna was the treasurer at one point, and then Tish was the treasurer for quite a few years. Tish was our assistant business manager, and the job was considered 25 to 30 hours a week, and had a set amount. And again, I just think that's a holdover from old times before we had labor laws. I don't know. Maybe some people don't feel it fits in, but I looked at all the information I could find, and it, there wasn't a lot specific to elected officials. But anyway, so a year ago, November, and I was fully in support of this, because it seemed to me if you had an elected person who got elected, but either didn't want to do the work, couldn't do the work, couldn't do math, whatever it was, there was a lot of responsibility, a lot of reports, a lot of things that were done. And it was at that point, under Donna's direction, that they kind of reorganized the treasurer position, and the selectmen had obviously input into this, to make it a smaller position, but the selectmen felt that it should still be an elected position. So basically, I'm primarily responsible for the bank accounts. And that was what was decided. It would make sense for me to reconcile the bank accounts. I work with the tax collector, and I verify every month that what she has in her documents for revenue is what I agree with, according to what I can see in the software and the paperwork she gives me. And I use an Excel sheet, a couple of sheets to reconcile with her. So anyway, it was changed to feel that the treasurer should really just be responsible for the bank accounts, and the new assistant business manager would take on a lot of the responsibilities that I had been doing as the elected treasurer with a larger job. And, again, it was something we hadn't done before. Nobody really knew what it was going to be, but I have kept track of my hours, and it's just, there's nobody else that can really do what I do, because again, you have to have a separation of responsibilities. If Tish is putting the deposits in, I'm reconciling the bank accounts. I can't also have Tish reconciling the bank accounts, because that's not good financial, I can't think of the word. The auditors have wanted to make sure we've had a separation of duties, so that, not that there's anything nefarious going on, but, good financial practice is to make sure you have different people doing different pieces. And so there really isn't anybody else that can do that, the banking part. Does that
Lori,
help? Yes.
yeah, Lori,
Yeah.
or Erica or somebody, why? I remember we had a conversation about this position, and that we weren't sure it should be elected, but we kept it elected. Erica, can you explain that whole thing again? Should it not be an elected position?
So I don't recall us having a real hard conversation about changing it from elected to appointed. Just that there needed to be a clear separation in duties, and that had been outlined for several years from our auditors. And so one of the things with elected officials is that there's no set time. So no one has a set hours. There's always been kind of an assumption of it should take you about X hours to do this work based on previous people who had been in that position. And so I think between Donna and Lori and myself, as we looked at the duties and based on their recommendations of doing the work, they felt like it was probably going to be about 5 hours a week's time.
But nobody gave it was an educated guess. It wasn't like what Lori's doing, and she's tallying up how long it takes per day. Like nobody ever did that, right?
No, because it was really hard to separate out what I was doing before, which is a lot of what Tish is doing now. And I think Donna made a good estimate.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. But you just think that it's a good estimate, but it isn't accurate.
Right. Right.
Well, I think that the position should be paid what it is worth, regardless if it's elected. I'm an elected official and it's free. So, I mean, I don't think that should be here nor there. I do think it's very good that you looked at the laws, the labor laws, because it does specify certain positions would be exempt from those that would not be exempt. And in, having direct reports makes it a salaried position. Having certain responsibilities, you know, with intellectual property, there, you know, there's definite rules surrounding labor. But one of them also is that you should not be taking advantage of, you know, the labor. And so Lori's right. If we didn't have somebody who lived in town, was a taxpayer in town, had the best interest of our town, working in this position, which is elected for watchdog purposes, financial fiduciary purposes, we would be hard pressed. I think the position should fund, you know, should pay for what it's worth. And if Lori did the research and has a ledger of how much time she's spent, I think we should go with that. I mean, if we're gonna bring a truck to town meeting for $60,000, we should be able to find revenue to pay our treasurer. I mean, it's like an important position, and if we don't have that person, we're in trouble.
Can I also add that when I took this position in March of 2020, as the pandemic started, the town could not find a treasurer. We had a treasurer that had resigned in January, and we couldn't find anyone. And I was retired as a teacher and said, well, I suppose I'm not going anywhere for the next year. You know, the pandemic was starting. So I took it on, and I was glad that it changed to a smaller position. I just think it should be dealt with more fairly. That's all. Thank you.
I think we, you know, when this was split up and we put more of the money, we transferred more of the money over to an assistant business manager and everything, that we came, that.
Duties that we transferred over so that you could still have an elected position and have the, I don't want to say figurehead. I'm sympathetic to this, Lori, by personal experience.
But I think.
So we took a lot of some of the duties away and then made so that it still could be a elected treasurer.
Right. And so the math was close. It just wasn't, you know, it wasn't close enough. So, I mean, I'm gonna move that we accept Lori's concept here and move that we compensate her for the $2,735.20 of unpaid time.
Well,
that
that's,
labor
then you're
that
getting
she
into a
spent.
thing. It's not salary, but it is. It's set, there's a set salary.
Jeff, can I say something?
Yeah.
According to labor laws, you cannot be salaried if you make less than $475 a week, and if you don't have executive responsibilities. I have no executive responsibilities. I'm basically a bookkeeper, and the labor laws are very clear about that.
They are very clear about that. Lori's exactly right. As I run 351 people, she's exactly right.
I would like to finish the motion. We compensate her for the time that she worked but was not paid, and that going forward, Lori submit a time card showing what her actual hours are worked, and that we budget for up to 8 hours a week for this bookkeeping that she does, which does not seem like an exorbitant amount of time. Is there a
I
second?
second.
I do want to weigh in. I think you need to do some fact finding first before you jump in and before you pay her, before you act on your motion. I think you need to do some fact finding, and then some, after you have all your facts, you need to do some serious consideration. So I think there's a bigger picture. This elected position comes with no set hours. One, I think that has a value to it because this position makes their own schedule. And so she is now on vacation for 10 weeks, which is pretty nice. So I think that's a piece of the picture. One small piece of the picture. I think there's other pieces that we can bring and talk about before we move forward.
You know what, Donna, I think you're right. I think it's really important to get all the facts together. However, you know, with all the choice out there and all the revenue that's being thrown at positions, I think the key piece here is that we have somebody who's already worked and understands the value of the job where nobody else did before. You didn't come forward and say, it's this amount, this is definitely what it will be. It was about. And so now you have somebody that's done it for us when we were in a lurch, and that's taking advantage of the situation. But I do agree that doing the research and getting the facts of really what it's worth is a good idea, as long as you're clear that it may be more. It may come back that it's more than what Lori is saying. So I just wanted you to be prepared for that.
And
Right.
just to be clear, I'm continuing to work while I'm traveling, just so we're clear on that.
Yeah, but
I'm
that
working-
doesn't matter.
working- I
It
know,
doesn't matter.
I just want to clarify that I'm not off for 10 weeks, not working. I'm working when I can get on access on the computer.
Yeah, but that's still, it doesn't matter where you are. The position it said you could create your own hours. And so what we're doing now is not saying that, oh, it's nice to have your own hours and we still want you to be the treasurer for a little bit of money. We want to pay the elected position what the value of the position is. So if you're going to get facts based on that, I'm supportive. If we're just going to delay and stall, you know, that's silly.
I don't know if I included this, but I have.
Sorry.
So I would also caution you that your motion includes items that you don't have the authority to put in place. So the Board of Finance doesn't have the authority, I would say, to create the timekeeping system. It doesn't exist for an elected position. And to Donna's point, I agree, this has come before the Board of Selectmen, and we are looking at the timekeeping system. That's one of the things this is brought up, we look at. But across the board for elected positions. So what, you know, your action could create some precedents for the 4 elected positions that are paid and kept in the same manner. And that's the treasurer, the 2 registrars of voters, and the first selectman position.
You're
So-
right, Erica. I
Yeah.
respectfully withdraw the motion.
So I encourage you to look at the whole picture, and I think there is some work to be done. But you may want to look at it as a whole and not in one single position, and, you know, let's get some facts and make sure that, you know, if we're questioning the labor laws, that we get the information on all of that and put that as part of the whole picture.
The one thing I would say about it though, is that she's already done an excellent job of collecting figures and making it a very clear set of facts here that are, you know, I want to make sure that we don't expend too much time compensating her for the time that she's worked. And I think most people would agree with that.
And while-
But I totally understand that, you know, you guys, really, the Board of Selectmen are already dealing with this, and you.
And we don't deal with the financial piece, so be clear in that,
Right.
we already said we don't take that up, her pay, and that line item is not in the Board of Selectmen's authority. Her budget comes to the Board of Finance. But if you're suggesting that one elected position should get paid more for the number of hours they worked, I think you're opening a little bit of a Pandora's box, because both the registrars and myself could give you an incredible accounting of hours that I'm not sure you're prepared to pay. And so look at it the whole picture.
And the what? The second
Second,
select.
third, right, so I mean, I completely understand what Lori's saying, but I think there's more information to look at before we act quickly. So that's.
Is the Board of Selectmen looking at this as as, to look at all the positions that fit in this category and evaluate that?
Potentially.
I think that's a good idea because I think we need to evaluate whether the selectman position should really be a town management position and not elected. So I do think there's some work to be done, Erica. Good point.
I definitely think every town should have a town manager, Lisa. But that is beyond, us, that the town decision.
Right.
So, but again, moving in one direction with one position in a category, really, you should look broader than that and get all of that.
All right, so. Yes, we do have to look at, this is something, it has come up, before, so it's something we do have to look at a lot more closely, not tonight. Thanks, Lori. I wish I could see you, but.
You're welcome.
I would say if there's specific information that my office can help you gather, point in the right direction, whether legal or otherwise. Let us know.
And is the Board of Selectmen also looking at the selectmen stipends as well, or?
We will be, but from our perspective, we can look at the budgeting for those roles, and we could look towards putting something townwide towards all of them, but those are decisions that would go beyond just the Board of Selectmen and just the Board of Finance.
I do think it makes sense unless, and like there and other people think, for Lori to present her budget with real figures in it.
So, I believe.
I
Lori has-
actually have my budget done, and I don't know if I forwarded it, but it does have the new numbers in it.
Yeah, I don't know if it went to Mike or to Jeff in the time Lori had it, but I believe Donna and I have.
Well, it's gotta go to Stephanie now.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna go to all.
Right, but I don't know who it went to in the meantime.
I didn't get it. First, I'm out of my town email,
So
so.
we'll make sure that the board gets it, because Lori has already prepared a budget that includes a larger line item.
That's the, oh, yeah, it is. Oh, that's her.
No, she has, her budget for the new fiscal year. Oh, that may be it.
Okay. Good, we good, we ready? Mike's gone, he was our member of the school building committee. So technically, we are still, so what I'm looking for.
We want a voice from your
Yes.
board on the.
I think,
We are still allowed a voice on the SBC, as the BOF,
Yeah.
so.
I'd like to nominate that we, when the time comes, or that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen, because they named this person, that Jim Marshall be our representative on the school building committee, if you accept that idea, Jim.
I would accept that, yes. Wholeheartedly.
Is there a second?
Oh, no, I'll second. Is there anyone else who would want to do it?
Peter's not here.
If you wanted to.
Didn't you
I don't
say
know.
something about?
Well,
This
again,
won't
I'm
this
not
won't
gonna
happen
tell you how many
until-
meetings it is.
So, yeah, and if I may, I have been very actively following along. I'm at every school building committee meeting, either remotely or in person anyway, because I'm very keenly interested. And honestly, if I didn't accept for, I feel like I'd be remiss in, based on my background and the fact that I just volunteered to, offer what role I could to the Board of Finance. I think my skill set and my professional background really lends me to that. I'm apprised as much as any member of the public can be at the current condition of the school building committee, not, obviously being subject to privilege correspondence. But I also, I think because of my experience, I would be able to be a very effective conduit of information between the two. I think I could serve a value to the school building committee, but I think I'd also be able to be a benefit as a, conduit of all of that important information, and be able to hit the ground running based on, my knowledge of where they're at and my professional background. I'm sure there is information I need to digest quickly. They're in a very critical, point in their evaluation process. So if I can be an assistance of any way, I know how impactful it is. And I have a daughter that, I have 2 kids in center school right now. My daughter will be going to hall, so I'm engaged on a personal level, very much so as well. So I would be happy to fill that role for the Board of Finance, for the community.
And that is the key role as as a representative to make sure that the information flow is going both ways.
I mean, no, I'm just, it might be, I don't want to say it's it might be a moot point, but how many, where are we? We're in, it's the 19th, so you're not gonna have a selectment meeting until.
Right, so our next regular meeting is Monday, the 6th. So the next school building committee meeting is February 1st. So I know I have a personal feeling about it, right? So as a member of the school building committee, his voice, I think, would be incredibly helpful. Is, he shared with you all and us his knowledge of the financial process, which I think would be key, as Christina giving you the CIP update is, we have questions about how this all fits into that plan. His knowledge will be very helpful to both the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen and CIP in that role. From the perspective of just coming onto the board, the fact that he may not be appointed by the Board of Selectmen until February 6th may not be a bad thing, because the board plans to take a vote on February 1st. And, I think that folks could feel either way about somebody just coming on and then having such a critical vote. So that may not be a bad thing optically. I think that then he would be part of that process, but still be part of very important process moving forward. If there is a positive referendum, there is a lot of work to do. And designing, creating a project, whether it be a renovation of Hall School or a new school, and someone who does this on a regular basis can very clearly help the committee balance between our professionals and our lay people on the committee. But I don't anticipate a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, I didn't think so.
I wouldn't, unless somebody really came begging us, and the board agreed that we needed to have a special meeting. So,
All right, so Jim's back, so, do a roll call. Roll.
Lisa?
Lisa. Yeah.
Can I pass again first? Thanks. I don't like to be called first, just so you know.
Okay.
Yes.
Jim,
Abstain.
Joe,
Yes.
Steph, yes, Lisa,
Yes.
Mike, I mean, geez.
You know how many people have actually thought we were the same person? I have no clue why.
She's so habitual
Yeah, we
to
don't
say
look
his
alike.
name last.
We close? I'm gonna abstain, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay.
All right. Double duty right away.
No, I honestly, I'm happy I'm excited to serve. I'm happy to learn from you guys, on the Board of Finance end of things. And I'm happy to be able to, in whatever way I'm able to make the communication information more accessible, a little easier. You know, I'm happy to do so. So
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
stepping up.
no, I appreciate it. And my pleasure.
We do present to speak again. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to add? People online or on the phone? Okay, communications, everybody should have what they have, what Mike might have sent. Good and welfare. David Crosby died today.
Oh, really?
Well, I wish Mike, much joy in his new role. I'm happy to see Jim come on the Board of Finance. Just encourage everyone to stay as healthy as they can, given that Connecticut now has 7 of its 8 counties that are in the high zone of infection. So, you know, do what you can to protect yourself and other people from falling victim. And the only county is Fairfield. No, New London.
London, so
New London.
numbers will come out. I think, today I haven't had a chance.
Yeah, and last week it was Fairfield and New London, but Fairfield apparently has joined the club. And you know, Eastern Connecticut, we started out so slow. We had the good numbers, the best numbers. for a
It's
long time.
more, the numbers are more based on hospitalizations as opposed to cases. So less of a direct correlation between cases and transition.
All right. Anybody else? If not, in honor of Peter Tanaka, I move to adjourn. Everybody say aye.
Bye. Thank you.